Hey, it's Magic Prepper here with MidwayUSA, and I wanted to talk to you about whether or not you need an enclosed or open emitter optic for either your handgun or an offset mount on your rifle. There's a lot of different options on the market these days, and enclosed emitter optics are very beneficial because they protect the red dot emitter. It's what actually puts the red dot onto the pane of glass that your eye then sees. But open emitter optics have been around for a very long time, have proven themselves in many austere environments, and work quite well, and generally are more affordable. So where could you save some money in the sense of using an open emitter optic versus having to need an enclosed emitter optic? Now, this is all based off of my personal experience, but I try my best to get out and shoot in snow, in rain, and all types of different conditions so I can develop stronger opinions about these particular optic setups. And we're going to talk about handguns as well as rifles to give you some ideas of what to consider. Now, just to give you the very basic overview as to what it is we're comparing here. This is an open emitter red dot optic. This is a Trijicon RMR HRS. And the reason it's an open emitter is because it has one pane of glass here in the front, and there's nothing in the back protecting the red dot emitter, which is an LED module that actually projects the red dot onto this pane of glass. So this could technically get rain, snow, debris, or anything else into this part of the optic and include your red dot. So, whereas an enclosed emitter is like what I have here on my rifle, piggybacked on top of my LPVO. This is a Meprolight MPO F, I believe, and it's fully enclosed. What that means is that it has a pane of glass here in the front, as well as a pane of glass on the back, and the red dot emitter is inside of the optic housing, so it can't get occluded by rain, dirt, or debris, or anything else. But there are some times where maybe you don't need an enclosed emitter, and there's some times where you probably do want one, at least in my experience. So let's start with handguns to give you some ideas about that, and then we'll move to the rifle at the end. Now, first up is going to be handguns. Now, most of these types of optics are being used on pistols because that's what they were originally developed for. And of course, like we saw earlier, I have one here on my Beretta M9A4 that is an open emitter design. Now, in this capacity, I found that on handguns, the emitter design doesn't matter as much as it might on rifles, but there are some definite differences you have to consider if you're worried about whether or not you need that additional protection of an enclosed optic. And so just to show you, here on this particular setup, I have a T-Rex Arms Ragnarok holster that I'm actually carrying this Beretta in. And as you can see, the red dot optic is not protected per se. It hangs out in the elements, and it is wide open to what comes down from the sky. And so in that position and in that configuration, if it's snowing or raining or any of the above, there's a good chance stuff is going to get into this optic and occlude the emitter. Now, there are some ways to work around this, but this is one of those scenarios where if I knew I was going to wear this as a duty pistol or have it on an outside the waistband holster, and I had an open emitter like this and I knew I'd encounter harsh weather or extreme environments, I don't know if this would be the best option. But that doesn't mean you have to get an enclosed emitter, because there are other holsters out there that might actually help a little bit with this. All right, so here we have my Glock 45 in a Safariland SafariVault holster. Now, what's nice about this type of holster is this gun currently has an open emitter optic on it, but you can see that there's a shroud built into the holster that helps to protect it. So I'll kind of just go ahead and demonstrate that here for you. Okay, so as you can see, open emitter, one pane of glass style optic here on my Glock 45. But when it goes into the holster, that little shroud up here folds back and does cover the optic quite a bit. Now, it doesn't necessarily fully protect it. It doesn't create any type of seal or anything like that, but it does keep just the basic stuff from coming out of the sky and landing right inside of that optic housing. So it helps with rain, it helps with snow, and it helps with debris. It doesn't fully get rid of it, but it does give it an additional layer of protection you don't have with the other type of holster, which, just to kind of go ahead and show you that comparison, you can see how much more exposed that open emitter optic is here versus here. So if you're going to run an open emitter optic in a duty style holster that's outside of the waistband, well, getting something that has that extra protection might be a good idea. But there's some other things you should consider when it comes to open emitter optics, especially for most civilians, which would be related to concealed carry. Now, this is generally how I carry my Glock 45. in a conceal carry, appendix carry style holster. Now in this configuration, it doesn't matter if your emitter is open or enclosed in general, because it's covered by garments. You're wearing a shirt over it or an overshirt of some kind or something that conceals the weapon and keeps that red dot protected. And so what I found is that with this setup, I haven't really noticed the difference of using an open or an enclosed emitter for concealed carry purposes. And even just to verify, I took this gun in this exact setup right here out in the weather, right? So it was raining and snowing at the same time, kind of just a gross freezing mix, right? And I did a few drills and I did some shooting and I did a lot of drawing from the holster and then reholstering and doing additional draws and, you know, shooting more than one round, right? Shooting strings of 5 shots or whatever it may be. And in that process of going through 2 full magazines, I only got a little bit of moisture in the optic window, not enough to actually occlude the red dot sight at all. And so in a concealed carry capacity, an open emitter optic is perfectly suitable and actually generally saves you quite a bit of money, because most of the enclosed optic designs from higher end manufacturers tend to cost more. Whereas this open emitter Vortex Defender-XL is an excellent optic, and I don't have to spend the extra money to get something like an Aimpoint ACRO P-2 on this pistol if it's going to be in that concealed carry role, because even in that scenario, going through 2 full magazines while doing drills, I got a little bit of water in the optic window and that's it. So if you're only worried about concealed carry, open emitter is going to work just fine, at least in my experience. And if you want that pistol to be a concealed carry pistol and a duty pistol, but you don't want to spend the money on an enclosed emitter optic, well, just make sure you get a holster that has some kind of a shroud for the optic, so that way it can do both and not cause you as many problems. But there is something else to consider about a pistol optic when it comes to maybe wanting one that's enclosed. All right, so here I have a Smith & Wesson MMP Performance Center 10mm with a Holosun SCS 320 optic. Now that is an enclosed optic, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate that here for you. As you can see, it has 2 panes of glass, fully enclosed, the emitter is protected. Now in this situation, I think having an enclosed emitter is a good idea. Why do I say that? Well, first off, this is meant to be like a woods gun or something you take with you out in the backcountry. And if you're gonna wear it outside the waistband in a holster like this with limited protection on the red dot optic, being able to get any dirt, debris, rain, or snow out of the optic without it occluding the emitter itself is very beneficial. And what I found is that by using a holster like this, where the red dot's not protected, and being out in harsh conditions, having that enclosed optic really does help quite a bit. And the other thing to consider about enclosed optics is that they stop anything from being able to occlude the emitter. And so if you want to just go the extra mile, it's not going to really hurt you to have an enclosed optic. It'll always be a benefit to some degree, other than probably cost. And if it ever does leak and the nitrogen somehow comes out or it loses a seal or whatever it is and moisture gets in there, well, you're kind of out of luck and you have to send it back to the manufacturer, because there's really no other way to fix that. But I haven't really had that happen. I shoot a lot of enclosed optics, so I'm kind of waiting for that day because I have a feeling it will come eventually. But in general, it hasn't been an issue for me, and it does protect that emitter and allow you to maintain your ability to use the sight on the pistol in just about any environment. So if you're going to carry a pistol outside the waistband and it's not going to have any additional protection, because this is a pretty niche pistol, it's not one that you can easily find holsters for, and especially from companies like Safariland, I'm not going to be able to find a shrouded holster for this particular gun that protects the red dot sight. So I'm kind of stuck with what I have access to, and this is a 4 Bros LLC holster. Great holster, but it doesn't protect the red dot at all. And so on this gun with this setup, I honestly would prefer an enclosed emitter optic. And the same can actually be said about the M9A4 here. Even though I have an open emitter, it would probably be better to have an enclosed emitter on this gun as well, because of that same style of holster setup. The other thing to keep in mind though, is that even with this not being enclosed, it still isn't a huge deal. So yes, enclosed optics have benefits, but for handguns, I really think you can get away with an open emitter for most applications. And that's just what I found, okay? Because honestly, I test all this stuff out. I have a range in my backyard, and I come out and shoot even when we're in the middle of a blizzard. So let's talk about rifles now. All right, on to rifles. So here we have a BCM Recce 16, where I have a fully enclosed emitter red dot optic piggyback mounted on top of this LPVO you see right here. This is a Meprolight MPO F, I believe. It's a relatively new closed emitter red dot optic. And yes, it is enclosed, as it has a painted glass in the front as well as in the back. So the emitter is inside of the housing, protected from rain, snow, debris, or dirt, or anything else that could affect it. Why is that? Well, before I had this particular optic mounted here, I actually had the Trijicon RMR you see on this M9A4 mounted on this particular scope. But unfortunately, although it's an excellent optic, the Trijicon RMR is legendary. When you carry a rifle, especially out in harsh conditions, usually you have it slung so that the rifle is pointed downward. And when it's pointed downward like this, you can see that the red dot optic is sitting right here. And if it's an open emitter style optic, the housing is basically just wide open for whatever falls from the sky to go right inside of it. And I've been out here in the snow and in the rain and other conditions where that exact thing has happened. And then you go to pick up your rifle and your optic is full of snow or water or whatever it may be, and you either don't have a sight picture at all, or the red dot is dispersed by all the water droplets, or a million other things happens where you can no longer use the optic for its intended purpose. So because of that, I had to switch from an open emitter to an enclosed emitter optic on my rifle in this offset position. And having red dot optics that are generally designed for pistols on a rifle like this or in a 45-degree offset is a good thing, because it allows you to have a red dot on a rifle where you would otherwise only have a magnified scope, which is good for up close and personal stuff, as well as being able to use it passively with night vision. There's a lot of good benefits for using a red dot on a setup like this, but it needs to be usable. And in my experience, open emitter red dot optics are just not very good on rifles because they're outside of your body. They're not protected by your jacket or your overshirt or anything like that, and they're pointed downward, and that red dot is just asking to get stuff in the emitter. And I even have a 6-hour MCX Spear chambered in 7.62 NATO that used to have an open emitter optic on it as well. It originally had a Delta Point Pro in this same exact position you see right here at the 12 o'clock. And then I switched that to the Vortex Defender-XL you saw on my Glock earlier. And now it has an Aimpoint ACRO P-2 on it because of the exact same reasons I had to switch this out on this exact setup. So if you're gonna put a pistol red dot on a rifle like I have right here, I highly recommend you get an enclosed emitter if possible. And honestly, this Meprolight MPO F, or whatever model number it is, because I don't really understand their nomenclature, but it's been good. And it's one of the more affordable enclosed emitter optics out there right now. So maybe you want to check that out. I'm still testing it, but so far so good. It works well, and it is fully enclosed, and it protects the emitter. So maybe not a bad option. And of course, the Aimpoint ACRO P-2 is one of the best out there, as well as the Steiner MPS. So there's a few good options, but that's my suggestion. Because on a rifle, I've just had too many issues with open emitter optics to where I just won't use them on a rifle anymore. Hopefully this helped you out. I'm just trying to give you some ideas and some guidance about what it is you actually might need versus what you might want. And that's just how this whole thing works, right? But let me know in the comments below if you think I was tracking when it comes to handguns versus rifles and whether or not you need an open or enclosed emitter. I think for pistols, the majority of the time, an open emitter is gonna work just fine. Even in an outside the waistband capacity, you're gonna be good. A concealed carry, you're gonna be 100% fine. And if you do have an open emitter and it's outside the waistband, well, maybe check out Safariland for some of the shrouded options that they have available that protect that open emitter. And then if you want your pistol to be outside the waistband and you know it's gonna experience harsher environments because it's like your woods gun or something like that, and the only holster options out there don't allow for any protection for that red dot, then maybe getting an enclosed emitter is a good idea. And an enclosed emitter is never really gonna hurt you, but they are more expensive and they can be a pain when it comes to mounting and a few other things as well. But on a rifle, I would get an enclosed emitter no matter what. And that's just where I'm at with it. So let me know your thoughts down below. Hopefully you found this helpful. And obviously, check out MidwayUSA for all of your red dot optic needs because, well, they have a lot of them.